everyone, it's Shell from Scrap Secrets and welcome back to my channel. Today's day 24 in the 2025 Countdown to Christmas series with Marie from Marie's Vermont Creations. Our technique for today was to use teal and gold. We're going to be using this die from Mama Elephant. It cuts out that frame. We're cutting that out of some gold foil cardstock. This is the stamp set that we are going to be using, and this is the layering guide for it. So there are two different shapes in there, and then a bunch of different icons that you can make in the shapes. We're going to be using some gold embossing powder as well as some peacock feather distress oxide to stamp out the tree. I do go with a different design than I originally thought. I did do a couple things wrong in this. I dry fit the whole piece first, which was great. That's what I should have done. However, somehow when I was measuring it out, the star actually got adjusted to too low for what the tree was. So we are going to have to swap out the tree. I really do like the first tree and I wish I could have used it, but it just was not tall enough to make it possible. So that's what we're doing right now, is just dry fitting all of the pieces for the heat embossing, because what you're going to need to do, we're going to do this all on this layer of cardstock. So what you're going to need to do is stamp out the thing that you're going to see the most of. So that's the thing that's all the way in the front. So for this piece, it would be the bow, the star, and the sentiment. And then the next one, we're going to do the shape as well as the chain. So I guess it's kind of an ornament, and so the ornament and the chain. So we are going to be we're doing 2 layers of embossing. You just want to be careful when you go over the first set of emboss that you don't spend too much time on it, because you don't want to burn the embossing powder. I probably could have stamped all of this out first with the embossing ink and then went ahead and did all of the embossing, but I wanted to do it in layers. Plus it will also resist the emboss. So if there was anything that would go over the bow or the star, it would actually resist it off there, and you would be able to see that full image instead of like the bow, and then you could kind of see the top of the ornament through it, if that makes sense. So I used my light kaolin clay to go over the piece of cardstock. That way none of the embossing powder should stick to places that do not have the embossing ink on it. I stamped it down. I did have to do it a couple of times, and I did change up the embossing ink. I think the first one that I grabbed was dry. These are just like little cubes from Hero Arts. I sprinkled on the gold embossing powder, and I believe this is from Hero Arts kit. And then I took my heat gun off to the side. I turned it on so that it would get hot, and then brought it to the paper. You should always heat your heat gun up before you bring it to your paper. That way there's less warping. So I did also heat it from the back as well to try to straighten it out a little bit. And now we are getting ready to put the other pieces on so that we could emboss them. Now you'll see here that I was struggling with this, and I realized that the tree is not the appropriate size for this. So I'm actually going to change out the tree. I also tried to do some greenery at the bottom, but then I realized if I stamped it out in the peacock feathers, it wouldn't stamp over top of the gold, and it would look like it was behind it, and I didn't want that to happen. So we're going to end up doing something completely different in a couple of minutes. You already saw it in the beginning. We're going to be using some gems. So while you're watching me heat emboss this last layer, I thought I would talk to you a little bit about the series. Oh, day 24. Can't believe it's already here. So we have one more video on Monday. Very excited about that. And if you are new to the series, thank you for stopping by. And if you're returning, I hope that you got a lot of great inspiration from this series. Marie and I have had a great time doing it again this year. We're going to see if we can do 25 new themes for next year. We already have 75, so I'm not sure if we're going to be able to do it, but we're definitely going to try some new techniques and things like that. So excited to, to start planning that. We'll give ourselves a little bit of time. So if you have not already checked out Marie's videos, make sure you do. She is doing a giveaway. I have a link to her channel below in the more information section. There will also be a link to the intro video for my series. So if you haven't seen that already, go over and check that out. Marie also will have playlists of our last 3 years. So you can go back and watch the old ones if you're just looking for something quick. We do quick cards, things that will take, that you can do one-offs of because it probably takes longer, and all different kinds of projects. It's not just cards. We've done other things in the past. And this year as well. So hopefully you guys will have gone over and checked it out because we've very much enjoyed it. And I just want to say thank you again to everybody who has commented, watched, thumbs up, did any type of interaction with the videos. We love reading the comments and appreciate you guys all watching. Okay, so back to the card. I heat emboss the next layer, and then we're going to get ready to stamp on the Christmas tree. So I use Distress Oxides when I stamp because they do tend to stamp better than the Distress inks. At least in my opinion, they do. So again, I'm going back and forth to try to figure out which tree. That tree I realized was too small. So tried another tree. I think I tried like 3 different trees, and I ended up with one that was just kind of open in the middle. The other one was more of a solid tree. This one kind of, I think it's the second one from the left on there. So I'm going to take my fingers and run it over top for the same thing. It's brand new, so it probably has some film left over from when it was produced. Ink it up with that peacock feathers, and I did ink it up and stamp it down a couple times, which is the wonderful part of the stamp wheel or any stamp platform that you have. I do happen to really, really love the stamp wheel though. So after I stamped it on, I realized I didn't line it up exactly correctly and it looked like it was floating. So I took a paintbrush and just kept dipping it into the Distress Oxide and just pulled that line down a little bit. Could have used a teeny tiny bit of water, but I decided against that. So now I found these gems on my desk that are like a tealy turquoise and some white in there. And I am absolutely terrible at trying to figure out where sequins or anything, little gems, would go on the card. I think that actually looks pretty nice. I probably put too many on. I did 2 down by the sentiment and then a bunch inside of the ornament. I don't know. I don't know what I did. I don't know if it turns out to be okay. I like it in the end, but I'm not sure if I'm completely crazy about the way that the gems were placed. If anybody has any good tips on how to place jewels, I know that usually people will say a visual triangle. It looks best in odd numbers. For some reason, I just could not get this to look right if there was odd numbers. And I don't even remember, do I have odd numbers? I think I do have an odd number on here. But it was just like, I don't know. Nothing was just working, I felt like. So I'm going to go ahead and try to stick these all down. I'm using my little jewel pick. This is from a company that unfortunately is no longer in business. They used to do the sparkle blends, and I love that. I have a ton of shaker pieces from them that I have not used. And these gems were actually from them as well, from one of their lines that they had. I got the gems from that. So that's all. Now that I put the gems on, I am going to take a really thin line of this Barely Arts glue and attach it to the gold frame. The reason that I did that is there's not a ton of room between, it's not that much bigger than the opening of the frame. So I wanted to make sure that it would stick down, and I made it even. You're going to see that I am going to try to figure out if I'm going to put this teal washi tape behind the image because I felt like it didn't have enough of the teal in it. It was very gold with the embossing and then the frame in the back. I do like the way it looked up against the white card base, but I decided to add a little bit more teal. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run this tape around all 4 edges. With the glitter of it, you can't really tell where the overlap is. It almost looks like it is paper instead of having like an ending, because you know you're piecing this together, and I wanted to make sure that you really couldn't see the seams of where each piece overlaps each other. So you really couldn't when it came down to it. So I'm just cutting off the excess ends. I was actually going to try to like miter the corners, and then I said, when I realized it looked fine without it, I'm like, okay, just glue it down. Now, gluing it down to the sequins or the glitter pieces was not exactly the easiest. It did not want to stick, so we did have to put some pressure on it and, you know, kind of give it a little bit to dry and put something over top of it just so that it would kind of stick down on there. The smoothness of the back of the foil paper onto the glitter, it was just two pieces that did not want to stick together, but we made it work. Then I'm going to take a cloth and run it around all the edges so that I get any fingerprints or glue off of it. And that is the card for today. Hope that you guys enjoyed this, and thanks for watching. I'll see you again real soon for another video. Bye!